Hello, I'm Victoria Pope, Head of Content for Quimey. Today I'm delighted to be sitting down with Lars Fredriksson, Senior Vice President at Altair. Altair, we've just announced, are the official electrification technology partner for us for Quimey Berlin. And we thought we'd take some time today to pose some important questions to Lars. Welcome.
Thank you, Victoria. Great to be here and talk to you today.
Thank you. Lars, why don't we start? If you could share, what are the most important trends in e-powertrain development?
So I would like to answer that a little bit from a business perspective. And I think we have two things which are quite important right now. And these two things are speed of development, urgency, if you want to call it like that, and also the complexity of what's being developed out there. I think if I start with complexity, we are seeing a lot more companies having the e-drive as a kind of company and corporate identity. This means that more and more companies want to develop their individual powertrains. And so they want to differentiate from others. So this differentiation can lead to more complexity. And at the same time, we also see that based on costs, they also need to commonize within a company. So there is a little bit mix of both differentiation between companies and commonization within a company to keep costs low. But also from an urgency perspective, we see now a lot of new players entering the scene of electrification and e-drive development, both from the OEM side and also from the supplier side. And these companies are often driven and financed through visions they have on how they want to reach a kind of technology superiority for the future. So the funding they have reached and the partnerships they have made are a lot based on visions. But sometimes they need, so to speak, to turn these visions into innovations, and they have to turn maybe early prototypes into production. Otherwise, the funding will be cancelled because the trust is no longer there, and also maybe partnerships will be broken. So that means they need to develop with a very high speed and show their stakeholders that they can really turn these visions into real products in the end. And that also then makes the same urgency more or less for the established companies, because they must also develop their innovation more or less at the same speed as these new companies popping up on the market.
Thank you. And how is the digitalization of product development supporting the ongoing trend of electrification within the industry?
I mean, we are looking both at these trends of urgency and the trend of differentiation and having more unique products. And in both of these, for both of these trends, digitalization is getting more and more important. Both digitalization is used to validate the design, and this will continue to be very important for the future. Validating means that we can take away a lot of physical testing and replace that with digital testing and simulations. But it's maybe even more important right now is the trend of simulation-driven design. And simulation-driven design means that we are more using simulation and optimization to drive the design more actively. So simulation and optimization are used to get as much information about sensitivities and trade-off possibilities, and that is more used to take design decisions in the future than classically based on experience, more based on testing and benchmarking and looking at competitors.
Thank you. And can you give us a short overview of the solutions Altair is offering to support the electrification trend?
So talking about both aspects, both the validation aspect, where we have a lot of or are looking at validating a design, more or less verifying that the design is having the expected performance or the expected weight or any other attribute performance. We see that side, and we also see this simulation-driven design side. And for both these sides, Altair is well positioned on the market we have a large portfolio of solutions and software addressing the validation aspect, so we can address more or less all of the different, we call them attributes or physics, which are important for e-drive development, like electromagnetics questions, thermal effects for motors and drivetrains. We are also looking at structural strengths and NVH acoustics. It's very important that these motors and these drivelines are quiet. So at Altair, we have software to address more or less all of these different aspects. But we also have solutions and software to address the simulation-driven design side. And that's very important because that's where we couple all of these different solvers and solutions and attributes together. And let me give you a short example of that. One specific solution we have at Altair now addressing simulation-driven design of e-drives is what we call Altair eMotor Director. So Altair eMotor Director is a vertical solution. It's designated for the design and especially multi-physics design of e-motors, where we are simultaneously considering all these different attributes we were talking about: electromagnetics, thermal problems, structural problems, and acoustics. And we can bring all these aspects together and look at them simultaneously. We can test motors virtually using, you can say, drive cycles. You can run them through virtual drive cycles. We can test them in separate individual working points of the motors. And we can check all of these different attributes and all the requirements from the different physics. If we have the right torque, if we can cool away the heat coming from the motor, all we can test at the same time. And now we can execute and do a lot of variations of our motor design in order to check which would be the best motor configuration to fulfill certain requirements. And that is something we do with eMotor Director. And in the end, we can use eMotor Director also to look how can we then find the best solution, considering either developing one motor or developing what we call a platform or a family of motors, which should have some commonization in there.
And what are the greatest challenges from a simulation product development perspective when it comes to EV powertrain development?
I think when we look at the challenges related to what we just talked about, especially simulation-driven design, we see both organizational challenges and we also see a lot of technical challenges. So from the organizational design, traditionally, the different aspects of motors and e-drives in general have been developed in different departments of the company. So maybe one department is looking at electromagnetics problems and see that the motor from an efficiency point of view is fulfilling the requirements. And a completely different department is looking at if the motor is loud or if it's quiet and if we are fulfilling our acoustics requirements. And yet another department might be looking at the cooling aspects. And that is, of course, the traditional way of working, because in the old or classically, we have had one department designing the product and different departments doing either physical testing of these different aspects, cooling, electromagnetics, or acoustics, or doing simulations. Now we are entering a complete different, let's say, era of development where we are putting all of these aspects together. That is simulation-driven design. This means it's a challenge to break the silos and try to develop as one single team to support simulation-driven design. However, we also see a few other challenges. When we want to do simulation-driven design, it's also extremely important to be agile and be able to develop with a speed that the design departments are expecting us when it comes to provide design information. And this means we need to adopt our methods and processes for simulation in order to be faster where we need to be faster. And I will maybe give you an example that if we look at simulation in order to validated design, we have very, very complex models, but these complex models takes maybe hours or days to simulate. However, if we are looking to support the design department and they want to know, can you tell me in 2 hours what would happen if I would change this aspect or this detail of the motor? How will that change the performance? Then I need an answer maybe in minutes or in maximum hours. And that puts completely different requirements of the models we are working with. So we can call it type of we need the right type of fidelity and speed of the models we are working with. And that's also a very important challenge we need to solve when it comes to using simulation-driven design to aid and support the design of e-drive components and the complete e-drive system.
And why is Altair particularly well positioned to address the electrification challenges?
I think at Altair we have process, technology, and also knowledge associated both with handling what we call the validation and verification part of simulation, of using simulation for development, and we are very well positioned with tools, as we say, and technologies on the simulation-driven design side. So also from the organizational side, we are well positioned because we provide solutions which lets more or less the different silos work and provide their best practice into a solution which we are providing, where we are looking over all the different silos and breaking the silo borders, you can say, and looking at all aspects at the same time. So we are, let's say, trying to provide the best of two sides. The experts for NVH acoustics can still be their experts. They provide their models and their best practice into a kind of simulation-driven design environment. And within this simulation-driven design environment, we can take their best practice together and put it together with all the other attributes and simulate and optimize all of it together. So from an organizational aspects point of view, we are more or less facilitating a little bit breaking the silos. But from a technical aspects point of view, we're also providing what we call strategic enablers that make simulation-driven design both possible and feasible and effective, more or less. And just to mention a few of these what we called strategic enablers. Earlier we talked about multi-physics, and we need to be able to handle all the different physics and attributes and aspects of motor design. I think we talked about it earlier that Altair has a very broad software portfolio supporting all of these different physics. We also talked earlier about right fidelity models. We need to be able to support both the agile early design process, and we need also to support the detailed verification process in the end. And Altair has both technology and methodology to more or less, without any limits, change our models and the way we are working to be either fast on one side or to be very accurate on the other side. And we can choose any way between that. So we talk about right fidelity. We always use the fidelity which is suited for a certain simulation and development situation. And we are also providing a unique licensing system, and this makes it feasible to work and collect information about designs using what we call design of experiments. DOE is a very important aspect of simulation-driven design because that's the main motor to vary a design and get information about the design. And what we do is to do a lot of simulations, and we do that normally in clusters. So Altair provides a licensing system to make it affordable and feasible to do all of these different simulations, but we also provide cloud technology and queuing systems in order to support efficient executions of such DOEs. And in the end, Altair is also leading when it comes to providing optimization and design exploration technology combined with data analytics to turn all the information we get from executing these lot of simulation, we need to turn them into intelligent information and decision information, so that the decision makers in the end can say, oh, if we change the design like this, we will have a higher efficiency, but a worse behavior concerning NVH and acoustics. But if we change the motor like that, then we will see a better acoustics behavior, and we have to make another compromise somewhere. And this is the information we need to provide to the decision makers, and Altair is very well positioned to collect that information and turn that information into decision material. So that's why I think Altair is very well positioned to support modern e-drive development.
Thank you for that very comprehensive answer. And looking ahead to QIMI Berlin in May, obviously we're working together very closely on that show. How do you plan to showcase everything that we've just discussed at the show?
So QIMI is extremely important for Altair, and one of the most important, let's say, possibilities to show what Altair can do in terms of electrification, e-mobility and e-drive development. And we will have a lot of activities going on at QIMI. We will have presentations and discussions on all the different stages at QIMI. We will have a big booth at QIMI and a lot of different activities supporting both ourselves together with partners we will bring with us to QIMI as well.
Excellent. We're really excited about having you at the show and to being in person at the show after a couple of years away. Lars, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you as well.
A really comprehensive overview of Altair and everything they have to offer, and I'm sure all the visitors to QIMI will be really excited to see everything you're showcasing on site.
And thank you also from my side. It was very great to talk to you, Victoria.
Thank you, Lars. See you soon.
Yes. Bye-bye.